Hey guys, my name's Dale, and this is Think Fact. Some people call it football, others call it soccer, but how did this happen? So, let's find out. Now, the concept of kicking a ball is far older than the sport we have today. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out how to make a game out of kicking something. That said, the Greeks, the Romans, the Chinese, the Native Americans, the Japanese, and the Australian Aboriginals all had their own competitive and non-competitive games, all involving kicking a ball around. But it would be the Romans who settled in Great Britain who would be the ones who brought something that would last for centuries and centuries. I mean, out of all the people who have been able to conquer Great Britain over the centuries, the one thing they couldn't conquer was the love for football. And today we call that type of football that they had back then mob football, being that it is the people of today who decided to call the game that they played back then mob football. Why is it called mob football? Well, mob football really didn't have a lot of rules, besides the fact that there would typically be some designated locations for goals. Your job really was to just get the ball to the goal you're supposed to get it at by any means possible. You could kick the ball, you could carry the ball, you could throw the ball, you could juggle the ball. Beyond that, you could pretty much play wherever, and there was no limit to how many people could play. If you want to have 10,000 people on your team, go ahead and do it. I hear it's almost like you're a part of an actual mob. Oh, I get the name now. Well, hold up. There is one rule, technically. You're not allowed to kill anybody. I mean, doing that would most likely get you instantly disqualified. I mean, you'd probably get like today's equivalent to a red card, you know? And nobody wants to be a big inconvenience on their team. But given that there is an endless amount of people with pretty much no rules playing a game where you're chasing after a ball trying to get it to one area, I can imagine there being some death. Oh, the Middle Ages, such a simpler time. And it should be noted, as the English went on to colonize most of the planet, their settlers brought this love for this type of sport with them. So that's why there are so many different adaptations of it in the different areas where the English settled. And there's still some types of mob football, and I say some, because you're probably not going to find the ones that are really violent, that are still played in the United Kingdom during special events. So if this sounds like it's up your ballpark, go have a shot at it. You need like a speakerphone to do like a huddle. Now it was around the 1800s when people really started realizing, hey, this game would probably be a lot more fun if we had some rules. So they did just that. Surprised it took them so long. But by the time people wanted to start putting rules in the game, everybody was kind of well situated on where they wanted to bring the game, what direction they wanted it to go, and what kind of rules they wanted to apply. Like the United States was its own country. Most of the Commonwealths had their own very highly developed cultures that were really different than the United Kingdom. And because of this, 4 really popular types of football today kind of developed because they were all separated from each other as they were developing. These are rugby football, Australian football, gridiron football, and association football. Each one but rugby to some extent is typically called football in the regions they developed in. The Australians and the New Zealanders tend to call Australian football just football, though it is a lot more lenient in that part of the world. On the other hand, the United States and Canada developed what would be known today as gridiron football. Each country has slight alterations to the rules, but that is the direction football went in the Americas. Where the British actually had a divide between what would become association football and rugby football. Due to a disagreement in rules, both games took different directions in how they were going to be played. Each type of mob football that developed into specialized forms of football is what is called football in their respective regions. They became culturally instilled. Now, the word soccer developed out of the word association within association football, and it was used along with the word rugger, which was used to describe rugby football. Now, the term was coined at Oxford University within England. There's an interesting history of them making new words by adding an ER to describe different things. One of the people who really pushed the word soccer was a very prominent footballer named Charles Wreford Brown, who just had a very massive support for its use. And that's really how it became popular and maybe even why it exists today. But as association football was brought to places that already had their own types of football developed, and them being just called football, the game association football was just referred to by its slang name, soccer. That way people could identify it from the own football game that they themselves developed locally. So is the term soccer wrong? No, it's just used to describe the specific type of football game that is being played, association football. and it's really only prominent in countries that had their own type of football already, using the word football to describe it, along with a few nations that call it soccer due to being influenced by other nations that called it soccer, like Japan being influenced by America, and the word soccer is typically more used in Japan. You tend to find football more common in countries that didn't have anything to confuse it with, which is why when Oxford students went out through Europe to teach people their games, like say for instance in Spain, where some locals and Oxford students created the Real Madrid team, they could just call it football because there was no need to incorporate association. The word football to describe the game was all that was necessary. But even with that, the name of the game is association football. That's why the English translation to FIFA, which is the International Federation of Association Football, it's called association football because that's the game that it's playing. That's the type of football it is. So in the end, should it matter? No. There is no right or wrong answer. It is football and it is soccer. It's association football. The term soccer is just used to help people in their own culture. Of course, we're gonna find it a little bit annoying, but hopefully with understanding the context, it just shouldn't. It's a game with a very complex yet fascinating history. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. My question for you guys is what do you call association football within your own country? I do know some places in the world actually have a completely special word for it. If you want to share that, do that too. And if any of you are interested in learning some fun facts about the World Cup, the channel Plethrones made a pretty awesome video that I would advise any of you to go see. Give you something to do. So with all that said and done, my name's Dale, this is ThinkFact, and remember, never stop learning. Thanks for watching. If you guys like my videos, please stay in tune for more. More videos over the facts that almost everybody missed. Your body would be destroyed.